Wonderful. Oh, thank you. Folks, it's something to watch. It really is. They do a great job.
Thank you. Great job, Welch School. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to go back to the agenda here. And item number 2, the minutes. We do have minutes from the November 14th, 2023 regular school committee meeting. I'd open that up for discussion.
Motion to accept and approve.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of the minutes of November 14th, 2023, the regular school committee meeting, seconded by Mrs. Dunn. Open that up for a roll call, please.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
All right. Next is approval of bills. We do have 2 warrants. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Olympio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5544 in the amount of $1,242,224 dated November 28, 2023, subject to audit.
Second.
Great, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of the warrant number 5544. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miko.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 5545 in the amount of $58,382.94 dated November 28, 2023, subject to audit.
Second.
Great, thank you. You've heard the motion by Mr. Olympio for approval of warrant number 5545, seconded by Mrs. Carpenter. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Miko. Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Olympio. Next, item number 4, continued business. A couple of items under continued business today. I'll start with you, Mrs. Dunn, for a report on the Welch School MSBA project.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be honest, you heard from the students themselves, and they gave a good report on the progress in the building. I think everyone was really very, very happy to have the gym available now, and the climbing wall, the new equipment in the gym, the new flooring, everything is really coming along very, very nicely. There is still work being done in the building. We're behind by about 3 weeks at this point. It may be 4. And they're working diligently to get that done because at the end of the month, everything will be turned over and the classrooms will be opened in the 3rd phase of the building. As I've said, there are things that have to wait because of weather, and there will be some things done in the spring with landscaping and outdoor repairs, and I shouldn't say outdoor repairs, outdoor work. We are also still working on the issue of the roof leak, which was a long-standing leak and became much more apparent when everything was opened up for the work. So that's in process as well, and it is separate from the Welch project, but it's connected to it. So again, we're waiting for some drawings and estimates and information we need before we can actually make a solid plan on how to proceed with that. But it is not leaking right now, so I don't want you to worry about that. But we want to make sure it's done properly. This is the right time to do it. So tomorrow will be our weekly OAC meeting, and then December 6th is going to be the Welch School Building Committee meeting, and at that time we'll have much more information for you, especially regarding the budget and the completion of the project with some really definite dates on completion and filing of the papers. Always happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, number 2, under continued business, is the kindergarten entrance age. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Hockman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask if we can hold this until the superintendent's report, because I think he's going to present some information at that time, and then we can take this up for conversation.
We do have a report from the subcommittee, but if we could do it now, or you can do it later in the agenda. If, I know Mrs. Dunn's subcommittee met earlier.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
Yes,
so,
yep, so
my
they-
apologies, Mrs. Dunn.
This evening, we did have a Quality and Standards Subcommittee meeting, and we received the information that all of us were provided with the survey, which was conducted among the staff of the early childhood teaching staff and administrators. And when we looked at that information, we accepted what was written and felt that we would bring it here to the committee for further direction on this. But as it stands, the policy in the subcommittee, in the policy manual, bears out what much of the comments and the research provided in that survey showed.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Open that up for comments, questions, discussion. Mr. Ackerman, we'll go back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And just quickly, I mean, I read the survey results as well, even though some of the comments I thought were a little overboard, but by and large, by a vast majority, the staff here prefer to keep the kindergarten enrollment date at September 1, which I think is what our current policy is. It was interesting, I think at least one, maybe a few staff members did talk about the possibility or their thought of perhaps having the enrollment date being the first day of kindergarten, which I think is something that the parents that were before us brought up as well. And I don't know, through the mayor to Mrs. Dunn, I don't know if that was anything that came up during the course of your subcommittee meeting tonight.
Honestly, we didn't discuss each individual comment, but we had definitely read through them and saw that there were 8 out of 54 who had come up with either they would be amenable to changing the date, and I think there were 2 or 3 that suggested different scenarios. One which was to make the date of entrance the first day of school, but the others were all very, very much in favor of keeping it the way it was.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. I like I said, I read the results as well, and I saw that too. I just thought that it was interesting that at least a few staff members talked about a date that coincided with our start date rather than, which would change every year based upon our calendar. And I don't know how that, I think the comments I read were more concerned with the breadth of the curriculum and having students roll into classes during the course of the year, and that would be unmanageable, and I certainly understand that and respect that. There seemed to be some comments about whether a 4-year-old would be capable of maintaining the rigor of the kindergarten curriculum. I don't know that August 27th compared to September 2nd is definitive of comprehension for any particular person. So I thought that the date that we actually started kindergarten, not necessarily school, because we start kindergarten a few days after we start school, was an interesting thought and idea, and but I also did see the vast majority was interested in keeping the September 1st date, and I think some of the rationale for that was the vast majority of the neighboring school districts that have that arbitrary date as well, which I thought was kind of a punt on the academic and social emotional development issue. But I understand that, I certainly understand more not having a rolling admission because of the unmanageability of a classroom. I didn't see much about the arbitrary date. But in any event, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mr. Amico?
Through the chair of the committee. And, prior to and thank you, Dr. Vidal, and to your team for putting out that survey. It was very helpful. Prior to that survey, I was all about, what's one more day? Let's get that kid in and so forth. And, And this is a case of where you know, sometimes you have to, you know, listen to the professionals who are in the building, who are doing that's their job. And for me, even as an educator, a middle school teacher, to tell an elementary teacher or a kindergarten teacher what's best for their classroom, it's very difficult for me. And I lean on Ms. Carpenter a lot for early childhood and kindergarten and elementary. I spoke to a couple of teachers after the fact, after the survey, and they were great. They understood both sides of it. They, you know, they had a lot of empathy for the situation, but on their professional end, they basically said that they would be against, you know, moving the start date. So, you know, as a school committee member, I have to respect what they wish, and you know, it's unfortunate. It really is for the parent, but again, I think elementary teachers, especially kindergarten teachers, they're sometimes on an island, and I wouldn't want their job because I couldn't do it, and I don't think a lot of people could. The challenges are great at that level, and I just think I have to respect their wants on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Any other comments on this item? All right. You looking for a vote or anything today, or is that just a report? Good. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to receive that report. We received it at the subcommittee, but it's written communication if we can.
So it is in our written communications?
Okay.
So we can receive them all together in that. But it is in our packet, so
Right.
it will be posted online, so it's public consumption, but we'll also have it as a written communication.
Thank you.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Third item under continued business is the letter to the MIAA regarding GoFan. I'm going to turn it over to you, Mrs. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you. This, as you know, is the letter that I prepared, and I'm hoping that we can take a vote to approve it. I would, however, like to make an amendment in this letter. In the very last sentence of the letter, in the paragraph, I'd like to add the word, "We respectfully request that the MIAA and your contractors respect our name, our athletes, and our city, and remember that we are the Peabody Tanners." So I'd like to insert that word. Another word that might be very strong is in the first paragraph, when I said this was an insult to our athletes and to our community. I stand by the word, but I do expect if someone would like to change it and tone it down, I can say this was a disappointment. I will always say it was an insult, but I will change the language in the letter. So I put it out to all of you for discussion.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. I love this letter. I love the passion. Certainly, you are a true Tanner in so many ways. I think a letter to the MIA is appropriate, just to put them on notice. I would like to change the word insult. You know, I wrote down unintended slight. That might be not quite where you would like to go to on this. But I wouldn't change anything else besides, I do think we need to discuss the word insult. This could have just been one person just not following through and not looking appropriately at us. So that's my only thought. Otherwise, this letter is great. I do remember, I will say, and the parent works for the city of Peabody as actually the school department, and his son, who's much older now, this was my first year, I think, as mayor, and his son now is almost an adult, and he and his friend came in to present to me a change from Peabody Tanners to the Peabody Bulls. And he had he was 6, 7 years old at the time, and he had a number of reasons as to why it should be changed to the Peabody Bulls. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, that'd be a great political decision for me to make as my very first year.
You would be dead to me.
We'll go from Peabody Tanners to Peabody Bulls. So I had to somehow delicately explain a little bit of the history of our city and why the Tanners is our mascot and what we're known for, being the Tanner City. And I could tell that it was a little bit of disappointment on the young boy's age, but that would not have been a move I wanted to take. So I, like you, want to very protective of Peabody Tanners and our history and heritage. Like so many of us, I had family members that worked in the leather industry, and that helped so many families and built the city up. So, I do want to put the MIAA on notice, but I do like to, maybe would like to soften it a bit. So, Mr. Olympio, then Mr. Amico.
How about disappointing? This was disappointing,
Okay.
a little less harsh than insult, but certainly open for suggestions.
Thank you. Mr. Amico.
Through the
Yeah,
chair
Mrs.
to
Carpenter.
Ms. Dunn, if you wouldn't mind amending that, I'm just afraid that that letter might get lost in their mailroom somewhere. They may just
Oh,
see a
no, I want to
thin
mail this
letter.
with a football helmet.
Well, I was thinking maybe we can send along a little packet, maybe a package with some bumper stickers in there, some decals, maybe a Hope T-shirt from the superintendent's office, and really just, send that along to them.
That is nice. That would soften it.
Actually, I like that. That's a good idea. Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. Through the chair, Mrs. Dunn. We generally refer to you to write letters for us frequently when we have issues.
I hope this won't stop it.
I will say, I have the utmost respect for you. This is a strong letter.
Really? I thought it was so, if you heard what I wanted to write, I told the mayor. I know, I was like, oh, I gotta tone it down.
I do get it. I do get it. I just have one question before I put my name on a letter to the MIAA, because they've been a little cranky lately. I'm not sure if you guys have heard,
Oh, yes.
heard
Oh,
about
I
some
know.
other
We're-
things. I really
got us
don't
on
want to
the
start
map.
anything. Have we reached out at all besides this letter to see if there was just a little error before we get them really mad at us with this one? Do we have any idea what happened, or are we just sending the letter?
So I did a little research.
Thank you.
Strictly via Google, not from MIAA. So this is their vendor GoFan, which is a third party that they use. They did call the Woburn Bulls at the Woburn Tanners.
Ooh.
So there are two tanners in the Commonwealth. There's the good tanners of Peabody and the other tanners of Woburn. Black and orange just doesn't look the same. But they did refer to them on the GoFan page for a ticket as well as the Woburn Bulls. So it may be an error in their third party. It was not just the Peabody Tanners, but Tanners in general. But the committee is, should know that now we have instituted, thanks to Dr. Higgins and his team, all fourth grade students in Peabody will be visiting the Peabody Leatherworkers Museum every year as a fourth grade field trip. Each class will be going there, so it will definitely enhance our understanding of the history of Peabody and the leatherworkers and the true meaning of the tanners. So that's just my little background. It was a slight from GoFan, not necessarily the MIAA, but the third party that they use.
Do you still want to send it to the MIAA? Do you want to send it to GoFan?
I'm going to call Gary Levitt and drive down with a letter from him for Woburn. I still would like to send it, if you do all feel it's too strong, I'll try to soften it a bit, make it more informational as far as, not putting them on the defense. So I will come back with another one. But I will tell you, I told the mayor, toughen up, because we're tanners. And I meant it. But I always have Plan A and Plan B. So I have another, what would we call it? Another action that won't necessarily reflect on this at all, but would protect us down the road. And I do have something to let you know. I spoke with my go-to guy on Peabody history, especially Peabody history with athletics. I called Mr. Andy Metropolis. And Mr. Metropolis is very involved with the planning on that museum, the Leather City Museum, and the Leatherworkers Museum, and the curriculum and everything. So I called him thinking if I needed reinforcements, I was going to bring Mr. Metropolis to the meeting. because you haven't lived until you've had a class with Mr. Metropolis. He thought this was wonderful. He himself had heard about it and had been a bit upset. But he told me, in my passionate description of we're the Tanners, we're not the Bulls, and I want the split hide back on the side of the uniforms, he said, it could be worse, Bev. 2 or 3, maybe 4 athletic directors ago, I won't name names, but he wanted to name the Peabody Tanners the Peabody Blue Jays. Now, could you hear Louis Crisostimo talking about the Blue Jays running down the field? Not gonna pass muster in Peabody. And he said that when that was brought up, it was shot down so fast, people hadn't even really had a chance to react to the suggestion, and it was completely taken off the discussion list.
That must have been a joke. That couldn't be serious.
No, he said it was serious, yeah. So anyway, this isn't too bad, but if you'd like, I will try to make this more informational and send it back to everybody. But I still think we need to send it, because we have to defend our name. We do.
And you are a great writer, Mrs. Dunn. You know that.
Thank you.
We know that. But, yeah, I think where things are right now, it might be good to kind of pull back a little bit on this, because I love the spirit of it.
Live it up. You gotta stand up,
Sorry.
toughen up. Wait, I'm gonna put it on a football helmet with it.
Any other, Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. Through the chairman to Mrs. Dunn. So, y'all know I'm a transplant. I grew up several miles down 95, 20-something years ago. I consider myself a Tanner now. I have the steer on my hats. I have the steer on my car, stickers. I was getting texts from parents of the football team asking me, what is this, why? So the pride is there. I honestly think changing some words, but not rewriting the letter. That's my take on this. Informational is obviously good, but also have fun with it. Make sure they're aware of it. This is not to rip them apart, but to inform them. And I think your suggestion of sending gifts with it, make sure they know who we are. Don't wash this.
Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Swanson. Mr. Hockman, interested in your opinion.
I'll be quick here. Not strong enough, Bev. You want to see something offensive? Go to Peabody High School's football game during the playoffs and watch a 64-year-old try to pay to get in. That's offensive.
Yeah, it is.
Only willing to take payment electronically from our fans, our people, residents of this city, people that have supported this team all year long for decades and decades,
Yeah.
and being either turned away because they can't get an app on a phone or can't figure out how to pay electronically.
Mr. Hockman, please explain that, because there may be people watching that don't
Yeah,
know what happened.
sorry.
And who makes that decision.
Yeah, thank you. So when we host a playoff game in any sport, it's my understanding, but any sport, the MIAA takes control over our facility, and they control the gate, and the gate is where you purchase tickets. And during the course of the regular season, we take cash, good old-fashioned American greenbacks, cash money. And people are able to walk into our facilities and pay whatever the entry fee is. And this committee, in its wisdom, this year reinstated senior citizens get a free gate. They don't pay anything to go to the game. Well, not when the MIAA takes over. They charge, I think it's $12 per adult. Is that what it was? $12. And we also have our students go for nothing because we want to encourage school spirits, right, Mr. Swanson? We want to encourage city pride with our senior citizens, and we want to encourage school spirit with our students. And we want them to go there and support the student athletes in this city and people that visit to play our student athletes. But the MIAA, no freebies. No senior citizens, no veterans of foreign wars get in for nothing. Nobody can get in with cash. They have to pay through an app. And I think, although I might be wrong about this, I think I am wrong, but I'll say it anyway. I'll do a Miss Dunn here. I'll say it and then ask for forgiveness later. I think you have to prepay. Do you have to buy the ticket in advance?
Yeah, you can't buy it.
You can't buy
at the
it.
gate.
You can't buy it when you're walking into the stadium.
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on. So you write that letter, Mrs. Dunn, and you use all those words And I know, like the mayor said, you are a talented writer. We can use stronger words. If you want to soften it up with some bumper stickers and some T-shirts that Mr. Amico wants to include, that's fine. And Ms. Carpenter, I'll say it to hell with the MIAA, okay? If they're going to get pissed off, excuse my language, if they're going to get offended by what we do, boy, they've done some offensive things over the course of the years, including to another school right here in Peabody, not under our direction. So there's a lot of student athletes that go to that school who did not participate or were culpable for the offenses that allegedly took place there, that got penalized severely. So if we're going to offend the MIAA, I say, so what? Let's offend them.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Mrs. Carpenter?
To that point, it sounds like there's a different letter that needs to be written.
Yeah, that was-
And we can add in the bull issue.
Well, I'll be honest. That issue about the payment, the online, it really is so different and so far-reaching. I didn't even go into that. I was aggravated by that. And it's really how I found out about them calling us the Peabody Bulls, because it was advertised on Facebook, and that's where I saw it. And then I saw the comments from people saying, you can't even go unless you buy online. So I think I mentioned it last meeting when I said there's two issues. One is paying online, but the other, to me at that moment, was much more important. But I do think that issue of the payments is something that we would be able to send. I would send a separate letter, certainly a more serious one, and I would need to get much more detailed and get some of the history on why MIAA does that, because I have no idea if they do that to every sport. Do they?
Ms. Dunn, if I may ask through the chair, if you are going to write that letter about payment to enter a sporting event, I'd ask you to include to respect local school committee policy.
I will, and I will tell you this. Where I'm so involved with Mass Association of School Committees, there is a portion of our agenda every month where discussion takes place about MIAA policies and issues and the things going on at MIAA. And there is a MASC member on every subcommittee at MIAA. So you know I'm going to talk about this when I'm with my colleagues, but I would be happy to ask them about that and see what they have to say, because they have very good information. They attend those meetings on the design of the tournaments, the rules, everything. And it was one of those things where I seriously did not even have time to reach out to them to get that information, because I wanted to write the letter while I was still mad, to be perfectly honest. But I also knew it was much more of an in-depth issue as opposed to this. This was defense of our history. I can do that with my eyes closed. So I would be glad to get that information, though, for everyone and bring it back. I really will, because it's something that affects everyone. I know some senior citizens, they were charged $10. Then another game, they were charged $5. There was no rhyme or reason to what they were being charged. And people just can't understand it. And there are other people, as I saw on the comments, they can't use an app on their phone. They don't have that capability, or they don't have a cell phone. You know, there's a lot of different reasons.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Swanson?
Thank you. Through you to Dr. Vidal. The ticket takers at the gate for the tournaments, are those MIAA, provided by the MIAA? Are they
Sometimes MIAA sends representatives, other times they allow us to pay our people to be there.
Okay.
They do set the rules.
Right.
And so, we've been, in touch with our athletic director, and he's expressed his concerns about this as well, to the point where last year we had a home softball game, and they said, well, if you can't accommodate it, we're happy to host your home game at a different location, and they can take the, so there is a little bit of, we have to play by their rules in order to be able to host our own home games, because they can put it at a neutral site. So there is a lot to this. I know I'm getting Mr. Hockman even more upset with every comment, but we have looked in this, and when you push back, you get, you're getting the concession stands and you're getting other benefits of having a home game, so you have to play by our rules.
And I get that, but it's a matter of, my question was based on, do they have concerns about the transaction of cash and the ticket numbers? And they can obviously track that through electronics, but they also have some, this is something newer. They've taken cash in the past. They have to come up with that policy. And I think, to Mr. Hockman's point, when we go through this communication with the MIA, not just Peabody, but everywhere, they should be respecting our seniors and our veterans and the students of those classes. I think that's a bigger communication, but it's not just Peabody with it. It should start here, as we always do, but it should be a bigger, MIA should be looking bigger and being better.
All right, thank you. I was going to bring that example up. That was a good example you brought up, Dr. Vidala. Mr. Olympio.
No, if I can just vent for 60 seconds as well. Can you imagine having a set of grandparents coming down from New Hampshire, coming up from Connecticut, 75, 80 years old, to see the grandchild play in a playoff football game? And with all the excitement, it's not a given that the parents say, oh, you have to get your tickets online. I mean, can you imagine them going up to the gate and that person at the gate, and the father's wearing a Vietnam veteran's hat? You can't come in. I mean, in that case, I hope they just say, go on in, sir. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it really does get your blood boiling when you hear that stuff. It's crazy. All right, that's my rant.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Olympio. All right, this was great discussion. I was actually really looking forward to this discussion. So I think we get some bumper stickers together, get some T-shirts or whatever, maybe some orange Crocs we can send along to them. I think we can put together a nice little package for each member of the MIAA. But no, good discussion. So let's get
I'll
writing,
even
Mrs.
put a
Dunn.
line in the letter at the end. I'll say, we have enclosed some Tanner, Peabody Tanner, should I call it merchandise or merch, to show our pride and our appreciation for the hard work that you put into athletics year-round. Okay, I can schmooze them. But boy, it's something that's, simple, but it's important, especially to athletes who still go to those games and they're in their 80s and 90s. And yeah, it's the pride, yeah. So, all right, I'll put that in, I'll send it out. I send it to all of you first, and then would it be permissible, should we take a vote on this, that if everyone agrees with it, then it can be sent? Would you like to do that?
Yeah, I
Second.
think bring it forward, yeah.
Okay, and I would say, I'll definitely have Mrs. Macarelli put it on our stationery. And Mr. Mayor, would you like to be a signatory?
Let me see what the letter says first.
Come
I
on,
want to
Jenny.
see what that letter says.
Okay, you read it first, and if you want to, as our chairman, you can put, but you can't put your name first. I got my name first on that, just so you all know. We're not of alphabetical order. Okay.
I've seen many of your letters. I know how talented, I want to see what you have to say first.
Okay, all right, thank you. And
Thank you.
if Dr. Vidala, Dr. Higgins, if you can gather up some real nice things. I'll send it
All
to
right,
you.
thank you,
Not too many
everyone.
bulls, though, not too many pictures of the bull. Thank you all very much.
Okay, so now we'll go back to the superintendent's report. Dr. Vidala, turn it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we started off our presentation with the Welsh School students, which was excellent. Two brief items moving forward. So under donations, these are actually two grants that we have. So the first one is one of our high school teachers, May Taylor, in the science department, applied for a $10,000 grant from Cell Signaling. And this is funding that's going to go to lab experiences for our high school students, provide hands-on experiences for the students in different science classes such as conducting DNA analysis, labs on the law of conservation, labs on scientific inquiry, osmosis labs. So it's providing materials and equipment for them to conduct these hands-on experiments. And so very generous donation from Cell Signaling. And so these are grants. So both of these, I think I'd like to handle them a little bit differently than when we typically do, and I'll kind of recap that at the end. The second one was a DESI grant. It's $50,000 for the McCarthy Playground. This was money that was earmarked in the state budget, really made possible by Representatives Tom Walsh and Sally Cairns for putting that in. And so when we had the playground done, they were able to get an additional $50,000 for that money. And so the funds have been made to provide additional flooring and safety for the students, and the work has already been completed on that. So these, I'd like to see if we could make a motion to receive the grants, but also typically we send on a donation a letter of gratitude. Here, I'd like to send a letter of gratitude to May Taylor as well as Cell Signaling for that first one, and then a letter of gratitude to Representative Tom Walsh, Sally Cairns, and Senator Joan Lovely, all who supported that. So in typical, when somebody makes a donation, we send the letter of gratitude to them, but these were made possible by other people, so I'd like to send a letter of gratitude to the people who made them possible as well. So if we could have a motion to accept the donations with gratitude and send letters to the people on our behalf.
So moved.
Second.
Great, you heard the motion made by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Amico. Roll call vote.
Mr. Swanson.
Yes.
Mr. Olympio.
Yes.
Mr. Hockman.
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Amico.
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn.
Yes.
Thank you all. And the last item we have is just an overview of the FY25 budget process. So just wanted to put on the radar of the committee. The FY25 budget, believe it or not, is already underway. Mr. Rippon is working very hard to put together the initial phases of the budget. And just as a reminder, this will be the first budget since FY20 that has no ESSER funds. So we're working really ahead of time to try to put something together. So during the month of December, we'll have created a level service budget, basically to have everything included that we have in FY24 based on the actual spending that we've had. We'll put that together. Beginning in December and through January, for the next 3 school committee meetings, we'll have our school principals coming to before the committee to present on how they're spending the money this year from the budget, how that's going, and then they'll talk about the areas of focus as we go into next year and how that will impact the budget and what some of their asks are and some of their needs. So we'll start seeing that in December and January. Early in January, I'll still be working with our central office team, including Mr. Rippon, to provide an updated version of the budget with the personnel changes, and we'll have some movements. One of the big things that will change is the impact of the center school, so we'll provide that. In anticipation of the end of January, when we'll get the budget, the governor's budget, when that's released. And that provides us with the number for Chapter 70 and the money that we're receiving from the state, and then the municipal contribution. And so that's when all of that information becomes public, and then we'll get into some of our real deep dive into the budget process. And so during February, we'll meet with the mayor and the school committee, and that's really our priority setting, looking at where we are in relation to the overall budget that we have with everything in it, including our ESSER expenditures, and then what are our priorities moving forward, and what do we need to do to get in under budget. In March of '24, we'll have regular budget meetings, and they'll begin on a regular basis, and typically we have a couple meetings per month to make sure that we have enough time to get through that, and then we'll have as many meetings as we need to get to a good number, and then in May, we generally have our school committee budget hearing. That's our public hearing for the budget, and then in June of '24, we'll have the city council budget hearing. So this is the process. Just wanted to kind of let everybody know. I did mention in the finance subcommittee tonight, Mr. Rippon and Dr. Chase and I all attended a series of webinars through a company called Edunomics, which is funded out of Georgetown University, and they're doing a nationwide study on ESSER and the funding and how it's coming off, and giving people some support and advice on how to move forward. So we'll be sharing some slides from them and some of their resources as well as we build this budget and look. And I will say that, you know, we've planned out very well over the past 3 years, and you know, they talk about a fiscal cliff, and I do feel like we're very well positioned to be able to come off of ESSER funding very seamlessly. And, you know, we will have some tough decisions as we do every budget season, but I do feel confident that we're not looking at these giant shortfalls that some people have anticipated. So this is the process. We're certainly underway, and happy to answer any questions now or continue that offline.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Vidal. Any questions? Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Vidala, when you have the school presentations, would that be the school improvement plan, the school council improvement plan?
Yes, so there'll be a group of people from each school will come in, and they'll talk about, you know, they'll do a slide, and we actually went over it with the principals today. So you'll see the demographics, you'll see the enrollment data, the changes over time, and then they'll have a slide for celebrations and this year, and how last year's budget has impacted the work that they're doing, and then thinking about next year, what their areas of focus will be, and, you know, given their school improvement plan, and then, you know, what their budget asks are, and then any additional considerations.
Good, thank you. Because I was going to ask that when the invitation went out, that the school councils were invited to
Invited as well.
attend, because I know that those members work on it, and over the last couple of years, because of the way you know, COVID affected a lot of the different things that we normally did, it ended up that many of the school council members just didn't know to come. And it's always good when they come and support their school and their principal, and it's nice to meet them. That was one of the things we had all talked about, perhaps going out to the schools to see them. So as long as they know, we really would like them to come. We want them to come. Thank you.
Great, and so we'll be inviting 3 schools to the December 12th meeting. So we have the names of those schools. Ms. Maccarelli has put those together. So tomorrow morning, we'll send out the invitations and make sure all the school councils are invited as well.
Great.
And that concludes the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you very much. And now we'll open up to public participation. Item number 6, is anyone here today that would like to come forward and speak? Seeing no one, Dr. Vidal, do we have anybody looking to join us online?
Seeing no one online.
Okay. Thank you. Now we'll go to written communications. We do have 5 written communications. I know we've already touched on pretty much all of these. Letter to the MIAA, the kindergarten admissions age teacher survey, the cell signaling technology grant, McCarthy Playground grant, and the FY24 budget quarterly report. I have a motion to receive those items.
So moved.
Okay. Further motion to receive the items under written communications by Mrs. Dunn, seconded by Mr. Swanson. All in favor? It's a unanimous vote. Okay. Subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee, Mr. Amico.
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Finance, Mr. Olympio.
Yes, as Dr. Videla stated, we met before this meeting, and I want to thank Mr. Rippin, Dr. Videla, and his administration team. We had a great quarterly meeting. It was just such a sense of relief for me personally that, you know, we kind of got an overview of where we stand at this juncture, and I just feel really confident going into budget season. There's not going to be any major surprises at this point, and certainly I was geeking out a little bit with the debits and credits talk with Mr. Rippin, but it was I thought it was a great meeting. There was some detail that was explained, and I think we're headed in a great direction come budget season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Great to hear you say that. Okay. Number 3, school safety. Mr. Olympio.
Nothing new to report.
Okay. Athletics and wellness, Mr. Hockman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we all received a document that provides us with information with regard to the schedule to purchase school uniforms for our athletic teams at Peabody Veterans Memorial High School. Just like to make a motion to receive this so it can become part of our record and answer any questions that any members may have. So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. You've heard the motion to receive that document, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Any questions at this time? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Oh, that's a unanimous vote. Everybody's in favor, I take it. Okay. I know we received it tonight, so if there's any questions at the next meeting, we could certainly bring that up as well. Okay. Quality and standards, Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Quality and Standards Subcommittee met previously to this meeting this evening. The two items that we discussed were the information presented in the kindergarten admissions age survey, and the second thing we talked about is updating the bylaws and making them all conform with current policies so that they will be ready for the swearing in January.
Great, excellent.
They're just minor corrections, and then making sure that they're dated. That's one really important thing that we're going to do from now on.
Okay, thank you. Parent and student advisory boards, any update, Mrs. Dunn?
No, nothing at this time, but we will be having a meeting of the Parent Advisory Board in December, and unfortunately, the date we chose is not going to work, so we're trying to get that rescheduled, but it will most likely be the third week of December.
Thank you. Building and grounds, Mr. Stockman?
No report tonight.
Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Yes, I will be scheduling a CPAB meeting. I haven't made it official, but I'm looking at Monday, December 11th, 6 o'clock at the Higgins. And also, too, I just want to clarify, I had some correspondence with a parent during the course of the past few weeks, and I just want to distinguish the difference between CPAC and CPAB. Let me back up a little bit. Last winter, early spring, Ms. Crompton reached out to me and indicated to me that CPAC, they only had one officer, and that officer resigned. He had to resign, and that group was just a group of one. They really weren't meeting on a regular basis. So I said to Ms. Crompton, well, we can't have that. I'll volunteer to be president. And she was all for that. When we mapped out a plan, we're going to meet in the summertime. We're going to map out a schedule for CPAC. And at that point, we mapped out the schedule. We arranged for some speakers because we want to make CPAC, which is run by parents, a viable group. And since I'm also a special ed parent, that was the thought process. Now, over the past 6, 7 years, I've been running CPAB, which is really just nothing more than an elected official making himself available to parents of special education. Nothing more, nothing less, and it's worked out great. Some meetings we have 2 parents attend, sometimes we have 12, but it's a great group to meet once a month. Parents who have special ed students, a lot of times they can't go to PTO meetings. They can't do normal meetings and things. Just everything's a challenge. So I know from experience, I just giving parents that option of another meeting to be able to talk to an elected official, somebody on the school committee, to just certainly talk about what's working and what might not be working. So with that thought process, where I thought I was going to be CPAC president for this year, I said, well, gee, I'm not going to have 2 separate meetings. I'll kind of converge the 2 into one. Well, September came, we had our CPAC meeting, and to my delightful surprise, there were 4 or 5 parents there that were willing to become officers. And I was like, this is fantastic. So we had an election in October. It was unanimous, and I want to thank President Liz Mover. VP was Amy LePage, and Stacy Marchand as treasurer. So they were elected unanimously as officers of CPAC. So I thought that was a great thing, but over the past month or so, where the schedule's already been made, and certainly I believe Ms. Movers had some other meetings with just the parents, I thought, you know what, I still want to be able to run CPAB, give their parents an opportunity. You know, they may not feel comfortable talking with other parents, but here I am as a school committee member and a special ed parent that's going through some of the same things that they are. Just gives them an opportunity to communicate with us, and I just want to thank the school committee, the mayor, Dr. Verdella, and the administration team. You've always been so supportive of more information and just being transparent as possible. So I just want to kind of clarify that for anyone that might be watching or will be watching, that CPAC, certainly, that is run by parents. But CPAB is a separate subcommittee created by the school committee. And honestly, for 6, 7 years, especially pre-pandemic, it worked out really well. There were, especially come budget time, there were some things that we were able to talk about and to discuss and to allocate, some issues that parents may have had that we've gotten resolved. It was just a win. To me, it's always been a win-win. So I'm thrilled that CPAC looks like it'll be a viable group again, and it was pre-pandemic. There were other parents that ran that as well. So I always felt like that having more is better. And again, there was a little bit of pushback over the last week or two. And again, my intentions, it just comes from the heart. I'm not looking to step on anybody's toes, trying to do anything other than help. So that's really all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Thank you. Mrs. Dunn, then Mr. Amico.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Olympio. When I explained that I had gone to the conference and I had a bunch of notes for you from the CPAC information that I learned, one of the things that came from that seminar was people were very impressed with Peabody having a CPAC and a CPAB, because keeping those lines of communication open is so important for all parents, and the mission of the two is a bit different. CPAC is required by law. As a committee, we have CPAB, which is an advisory committee to the school committee, and basically Mr. Olympio is the liaison, just like I do it with the Parent Advisory Board. And I know when you started the CPAB, it was because of the example of the Parent Advisory Board. The mission is one of communication and being able to talk with parents, answer their questions. If we don't have an answer, we get it and bring it back to them, and then they provide that information to the members, at least with Parent Advisory Board, the members of the PTOs. And that's how you're able to inform people of things that are going on, or settle questions or issues that may be going on in one or two schools. And the fact that what you did when you started the CPAB, it was actually filling a need, and you did a great job with it. And now that we've got CPAC back and CPAB, they can work together, because CPAC has actually a bit of a different mission than what the Special Ed Parent Advisory Board has. That is something where people can speak through you to the school committee. CPAC has a different role. They advocate for special education in a different way than we do. Same mission, but they have a different charge to go forward. They have some things that they're required to provide. As a school committee, we need to support the CPAC through budgetary considerations. Years ago, it used to be providing stationery and postage. If that's still needed, we need to be able to provide that. We need to make sure we have a place for them to meet. There's a list of things that we do as a school department. But being able to have both, we have a CPAB report every month, and most other school districts don't. And the people at that meeting were very grateful to hear about it. So good for you. You did it with wonderful intentions, and I want to thank you for that.
Please, Mr. Olympio.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. And, that's, when I started at PAB with you and Mr. Amico 8 years ago, and the PTOs would come and they would talk to us about various school issues, things that will work and things aren't, or even just general school information. A lot of people do not watch these meetings. They don't have time. But certainly we've always, I remember back when we were with PAB, we would say, hey, this is what's going on. This is the new projects that are coming down the pike, and it's just more information. But I also knew, being a special education parent, that a lot of the things that parents were talking about really didn't apply to, say, someone, my son. And you certainly don't want to be the one in the room raising your hand when you know your concerns or even just a story might not apply to 90% of the parents. So that's why, the group has worked well over the past 6, 7 years, because it gives parents that sense of comfort that the things that we're going to be talking about are things that apply to everybody that's sitting down at the table. And it sometimes doesn't even have to be school issues. It's things like, my son hasn't sat in a barber's chair in a year. Do you know a place, John, where you can get a haircut, where they're welcoming to autistic children, things like that. Autism Eats, and just all these different things around the North Shore. And it's just a 45-minute to an hour type of group discussion that, again, it's not always about what's working, what's not. It's just another way of just parents getting together. And again, I've been blessed over the past 6, 7 years. There's been 6, 7, 8 people that attend on a regular basis, and it helps me out as much as it helps them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miko?
Through the chair, thank you, Ms. Dunn, for saying that. That was excellent. And to Ms. Olympio, thank you for all that you do. I've said this to you. I've said this publicly. You and your wife, Cindy, are champions for autism and special ed parents. I know a lot of what you do, and you help a lot of people. You help us. You bring items to us through your reports or through our meetings, and you help shape what we think about what we need come budget time. So a lot of what you do, not only are you helping people, but you're helping us. So I just want to thank you publicly.
Thank you, Mr. Mika.
Excellent. Both well said. Thank you. Okay. City Council Legislative Delegation, anything, Mrs. Carpenter?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Anything on redistricting, Mr. Hockman? And Performing Arts, Mr. Swanson?
Quickly, if you missed Mamma Mia, you missed a great show. They wrapped up this last weekend for the stage one. High school and middle school bands are prepping for their winter concert series coming up the next few weeks. And then for all you that are out and around the city, Chorale and Full House, you'll see them performing at many of the city events. So say hi to them and tell them how well they are actually doing.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson.
Just quickly,
Please, Mr. Hockman.
on that report through you to Mr. Swanson, I do want to thank the Performing Arts Department for allowing people to buy tickets in advance for Mamma Mia, but also to pay cash at the door. So thank you to the Mr. Simmons and his department over there at the high school. Thank you.
And that was great. Okay, I did want to mention, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Miko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we, on December 5th, the senior class is having a meeting. So after that talk about raising funds for different classes, the senior class has decided to try to bring back the pasta/pizza dinner fundraiser. And we're looking at a couple of dates in the spring. I know Mr. Swanson was at that meeting. There's another meeting being held on December 5th. It's a Tuesday night at 6:30 at the high school. And if you are a senior parent or someone from the community that would like to help out and join this committee, we're looking to bring back a great event where we can raise some money for our senior class this year. So more details to follow. But there is a meeting on December 5th at 6:30 at the high school.
Great, thank you. That's terrific, Mr. Miko. Thank you. Before we break, I did want to mention Dr. Vidala and I were able to attend the ribbon cutting yesterday at the West Elementary School, and I just wanted to speak for a minute on that because it was a very special event. There's nothing better, as we all know, when a community comes together to do something special, particularly for our kids and students and things. And this was a process that came together pretty quickly, much quicker than some other projects we've done. And it was because of the commitment of so many people, and so many people wanted to be behind this effort. I wanted to just recognize Katie Colombo, who is the West School PTO president, and was really the driving force behind that. Dr. Vidal and I honored her with a citation. And her team were terrific, the team from the West School, Mrs. Broughton, the principal, all the teachers. There was so much support at that school, which was wonderful. But they dedicated the playground. There were a couple of dedications that were very special. First one being Henry Breckenridge, of course, our police officer who passed away really left his mark in the city, particularly to our children, really connected with our children, and was so, just had a way about him that was wonderful. And they dedicated the playground. Henry's mom, brother, sister-in-law were able to come and be a part of it. Grandson, or Henry's nephew, were able to come, and it was really wonderful. She spoke, and she cut the ribbon, actually, which was terrific. Also, there was a special play area that was named after Olivia Borman. Olivia is an inspirational young lady who graduated from the West School, and she was able to be there and make the dedication. Her and her mom were there, which was terrific. But I wanted to mention the school committee, all of your efforts in support of it, the city council, our community preservation commission, our park and rec commission, Jen Davis, our park and rec director, and so many people just came forward to help out with that effort. So I believe right now we have all of our park playgrounds done within the last 10 years, except for the Carroll School, I believe, which we've done some improvements there. We just recently put on completely new footing and new, forgetting the name of it, but that's just recently been done. So I really feel good about where we're at with our playgrounds. I know that's been a priority for all of us to really make a difference in our playground areas, and I feel really good about where we're at. There's some other playgrounds we're going to be working on at Farnham Park, Lieutenant Ross Park, that are coming up in the future. But in terms of our park playgrounds at our schools, I really feel good about where we're at. Always got to keep an eye on that, certainly. But I do want to mention it was very special yesterday, and everybody did a great job. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, Mrs. Dunn?
Just to follow up on that, thank you. It really is a wonderful goal that's been reached, and there were some really very nice pictures in the paper about that ceremony with the kids. The faces were just phenomenal, and the Breckenridge family and the Borman family were both highlighted in those photos too. So it was a nice article, and actually in the Salem News and the Lynn Item, and it's great. It really is.
Mrs. Dunn? Yeah, please.
I had 2 new items, if I could. First, I want everyone to look at the floor in the library. There's something missing, and people need to be thanked for it. Wiring was improved in the library, and there are no longer any wires running across the floor for a school committee meeting to be able to be broadcast by PATV. So, thank you. Mr. Rippon, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vidal and Mayor Betancourt. It is something that people might not even notice, but it's been a long time coming, and it's a great improvement. It will really help, and it's a safety issue. No one has to worry about tripping over wires. So thank you. The other is, could we get a report on roof leaks in our schools so that we know the current status and you know, what the plans are to take care of those problems? I know we got an email on one, but I'm hearing from other people on some really serious situations.
Yes,
So
we'll
thank you.
absolutely put something together. I did talk to Mr. Simmons today, and I asked him about were there any roof leaks. I know there was some rain Monday night into Sunday into Monday, and he said no. So it tends to be when it's heavy driving rain that's windy at the high school. So that's something where we're trying to narrow it down as best we can. But I will certainly look into other areas. I know when there are winds, high winds, we do get a lot of water in different areas. But we'll put together a report and have that for you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Okay, so our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, December 12th. Any items for that, please reach out to Dr. Vidal and I, anything that you'd like to add to the agenda. Otherwise, if there's nothing further, move to adjourn, and thank you, everybody, for a good meeting. Okay.